It's, I think it's the equivalent right now of like music journalism.
Yeah, so do I. I do too. I think it's valuable, and I think people that don't think it's valuable are just jealous that they're not making money off of beatbox content.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Hold
Granted,
on.
I think the community could benefit from a little more like content diversity.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
that's kind of hard to do in a scene such as beatboxing. It's really like you're either creating or you're reacting. Like there isn't like a whole lot of other stuff to do at this point. The industry isn't large enough yet.
It's funny. Oh, I gotta put your music playing. Let me out. So much for getting ready. um. There's just this little hum. Let me grab a little bit of.
It might be me. My fridge is fucking loud. I can turn down my.
Oh no, I can put a noise gate on, and that'll solve that. Grab a little bit.
It might be me. My.
Little bit.
It might be me. My fridge is fucking.
Okay, yeah, it is the fridge.
Is that better?
It's interesting because it doesn't pick up over Discord for when I try to hear it, so maybe it's the compressor.
Yeah, that like input sensitivity thing I have set for my handheld, not my like snowball or whatever the fuck I use.
Oh, that's limiter. Gate. Noise gate. There we go.
Yeah, hopefully that's better.
It's way better. Yeah.
Nice.
Just in case, I'm gonna get a noise gate, which I should have set up anyway. What's up, random bottle cap with a bottle? That's a great name. If a little wordy. All right. Okay. We're good to go.
Cool. Let's do it.
So actually, before we started, did you want to go back to what we talked about regarding the transition in the community and sort of the difficulty in getting people to make money, right? Younger artists are becoming adults, and the transition's been difficult.
Yeah, are we live?
Oh, we are. Yes.
Okay.
By the way.
Yeah. I can do a little intro first, I guess.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm Zach Van Dries, stage name ZVD. From Chicago area most of my life. I've moved around a little bit, but I just moved to Minneapolis starting full time. So pretty hot topic for me, at least, is like transitioning, aging up. Mm-hmm. I mean, beatboxing is something I've been doing for a long time. I started maybe 2014. I think it's been like 9 years for me. So I'm pretty old in the scene, like all things considered, even though I've kind of like blown up a little recently. Yeah, like people didn't really know who I was until recently, but no, I've been around for quite a long fucking time.
That is how it works.
Yeah.
Overnight success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we can get into at some point. But
sure.
The transition, I think, is really interesting because, like, the era of beatboxers that have like escalated to the top of the game now, like transitioning, like you said, but there's also like the community has grown so much more than it ever has before in the last like 2 to 3 years. Like there's so many beatboxers now. There's so many just like young kids online or in some random country around the world that are just like insanely good.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them. Before, anytime there was a kid like to that level, like the whole community knew about it, right? Because they got a Swiss shout out, and then that Swiss shout out got 100K, 200K, and everyone was like, oh, we know this kid. And then when they showed up at tournaments, everyone had their eyes on this person. Nowadays, there's 20 of those kids for every one there used to be. So it's really interesting, and it'll be really interesting to see how that impacts like just like the depth of talent. Is it still going to be the same amount of people on top? But like that amount of people are just at a higher level because they had to compete. You know what I mean? Or is it just going to be more artists to field from? It'll be interesting.
100%. What comes to mind is that there was a kid, I think he was trying to cover Earthquake, and everyone busted his chops. And then Swiss Beatbox gave him another chance to do it. And he was like, great, but that was a few years ago. And now you're right. Like, it's crazy. The first time I heard Jolux, and there are a ton of other, crazy kids, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking throw away my microphone.
No, dude, I feel that.
Yeah.
It's like I go for 9 years, and then like all these kids now in the scene that are like, yeah, I've only been beatboxing for 2 years, and they're like insane. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I just suck then, I guess. Like, but I guess there's something to be said about like, if the current level of the scene and like meta is higher, like the amount of time it takes to get to that meta level is shorter, because there's more resources, there's more people out than like before, where like maybe it only took me 2 to 3 years to get to like the level of 2014 or 2015, and then I just have to continuously adapt with the scene as it grows. There's I haven't really thought about that before, but it's interesting to think about for sure. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I think like there's actually a decent amount of conflict that results from the age gap. Not that people are malicious or prejudiced consciously, it's just what they want from the scene is different depending on who you ask and what the age is.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a global freaking community now, like
crazy.
What the standard or goal is for people in Korea might be completely different than here. It might be completely different than like a developing scene in like South America, right? Like they're all vastly different, and what they value is vastly different. So it's interesting, especially in international battles, to see like how that kind of all like compiles onto one,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of shit hitting the fan all at once. And it's good to, I think that it's turning a little bit more into a conversation. I'd like to hope. I think there are people who are being responsible about it. So what got you into beatboxing?
That's always, man, I get that question a lot, and it's a hard one. I don't really remember there being like a day where I like woke up and was like, I want to beatbox, or like some kid in my class that was beatbox. Like I never had any of that. I don't really remember what sparked it. I was probably just like on a YouTube rabbit hole at some point way back in the day. I remember the video, which was, it was an old Hikakin video. It was like this old beatbox YouTuber, and he had a video where he brought Reaps 1 on, and that was like the only one I had ever seen. And I was like, this guy is like incredible. Like I had heard beatboxing on the street, like Dave Crow doing like just dubstep into an amp on the street, and I was like, all right, that's cool. But when I heard Reaps is when I was like really like, oh wow, this is more than I thought it was, So I went down his whole catalog, and man, I used to watch like the old championships, like 2009 UK champs and stuff like that. Like nice. I loved those battles. I used to watch those like crazy. 2012 world champs, I was like super into. But that's when I was just really watching a lot of beatboxing. And when you're like that early into beatboxing, there's almost this air of like, especially back then, where like the sounds weren't as crazy. It was more like basics. Whereas like I could learn this. Like this isn't like it's not beyond the realm of like learning, which nowadays I feel like it's a lot more intimidating to hear like D-Lo do a crazy set and be like, I want to learn that, Like, you hear this and you hear the decades of like mastery in the craft. Back then I feel like obviously it was really hard, and as you start to learn it you realize how crazy these people are, but like the barrier to entry was a lot of just like percussion noises, and like throat bass, which are like pretty easy to comprehend in the whole scheme of things. So yeah, I don't know, caught the bug, I guess, and just kind of did it on the side for years and years and years throughout like high school. Did some online beatboxing when Discord became like big in the scene. I was never like on TeamSpeak, but I used to watch all the battles. I used to watch the Xbox kids. Like they used to post stuff on YouTube, I'd watch it, but I was never online doing stuff with them. But yeah, Discord, when Discord first came out is when I like started to level up. But I never like fully got into the online scene. It was a little toxic for me.
Shocking.
Yeah. Discord for me was more of like, I was off of Discord for a few months at a time, developing new stuff, pop on Discord for a day or two in a row, do a bunch of new routines, see how people reacted, and then disappear again. And I did that for like several years in the beginning. then what changed for me, and I think sparked like the biggest level up, was when I went to college. I went to University of Wisconsin and just like randomly met like a dude from an acapella group, and he was just like, we're looking for a beatboxer, like join our group. And I was like, all right, like screw it, I'll do some acapella. So I joined, and it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. It was awesome. Love those guys. Shout out Fundamentally Sound. That's my group. And it was great individually. It was just a great community of dudes. But as a beatboxer, it like changed my entire perspective, man. Like I had this huge ego about me, like when I first went in, of like, man, I'm gonna show the acapella world like all these crazy beatboxing noises, and it ended up just being like really sloppy and all over the place because I was like forcing it too much. So I think learning like the vocal percussion side of things, which is all about performance and like loud, clear sounds, and like just like what sounds you choose for your kick, what like type of snare you use, like make a huge difference in a beat. That helped me tremendously because I had learned all the crazy sounds at that point. Like I had lip rolls and bass, like I had all the stuff of whatever 2017 was, whatever was hot then, Yeah. I had the double voice on the rise. I thought I was like hot shit. But like
and then
really going back and
cold diarrhea.
Yeah. And I was good, like don't get me wrong, but especially compared to a lot of like acapella beatboxers, they're fine. But I think it really took those 4 years of like just stage experience, performance experience that like really shaped my style now.
You can't substitute that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're scared shitless. There's something about doing it consistently where it's like you walk out. It's like it's your job. You go out, you do the thing, and you go back. And that calmness it's like a superpower. It gives you your ability goes up. Your ability to connect with the audience goes up because you're not focused on your own feelings.
Yeah, I will say it's very different in the acapella world too. I always say this, but like singing on stage is like 30 times more nerve-wracking than beatboxing, especially to a crowd that doesn't know beatboxing. Like a beatboxing event can get pretty nerve-wracking because everyone in the crowd is a judge. Everyone criticizes beatboxing, everyone analyzes it. So, like, you have to make sure you're hitting all your stuff. But for, like, an acapella audience, dude, I can do anything and they'll freak out. So it, like, boosted this, like... I've basically associated beatbox performance with, like, confidence at this point because I've done it for so long that I don't really get tripped out performing for beatboxers or not beatboxers anymore, which is, like, one of the biggest gifts that I have, for, like, battling. Because I just feel like I'm owning the energy up there. And that's, like... huge in battles because a lot of kids are nuts. They're like better than me and they're online monsters, and then they get on stage and they can't execute on anything, or they're really quiet, and you're just like, oh well, thank God I have stage experience because that's kind of what's carrying me. But
yeah, I like what you said about like the fundamentals and how important that is. That's something that pops up a lot.
Yeah
like you read the YouTube comments, because you hate yourself. And then, all the, like, oh, this sound is not so great because I've heard it before.
Yeah, I try not to, like, even think about how, like, what, like, the general community, like, thinks of your beatboxing, at the end of the day, like, 50% of the time, whatever you're criticizing online, they're completely different live anyway. Like, I don't know.
I get that.
Unless you're like blatantly like biting all the time, or you have something like seriously problematic with your style, like it's like totally okay to like get inspiration from other people and use it differently,
So, Eclipse is with us, so I have to adjust the scene here.
I woke up.
That happens sometimes. It's one of my favorite things. I hope it continues. All right. Oh, dang. So what are your... And this is a really tough question because it's highly dependent. When it comes to aspirations, do you... Like, how do you want to keep beatboxing in your life? I know that's a loaded question.
Oh, it's topical for me. I've been like after this weekend because I like American Champs just happened. I've been like wrestling with that a lot. Because again, like I've been beatboxing for like 9 years, man. Like it's been a long time, and the goal most of those 9 years, if not all, was like never like I want to be the American champ or like I want to win this battle. It was always for me, for whatever reason, I know at this point I'm like good enough to get the recognition from the community. Like my whole goal for all of beatboxing was to do well enough at American Champs to where people like put respect on my name. You know, that was it. Like that was the end goal for me. And I feel like I did that last weekend. And after I won my top 8 battle, and I knew I had made it into the top 4, you know, like very surreal experience. This like switch like flipped in me where I like lost like all like ferocity and like energy to like go battle on stage. Like I knew like it was a semifinal battle. For one, I was out of beats, you know, like
sure.
I wasn't like super prepared for like that deep of a bracket run, but like this like nervous like, oh, I want to like battle, which is like kind of not what I'm known for because I'm not known for anything. Like I'm pretty like low key in the scene, you know. But for people that have seen me, like that's like one of my strengths is like I'm a pretty good like battler. You know, I'm loud, I'm in your face. Like I like lost all of that. Like I just like had no desire to do it in the top 4 at American Champs, and I think I had like this realization that like I either need to like redefine my goals to be like I need to be American champ, you know, because then I'll come home and I will grind solo battle routines and that'll be my goal. But I feel like I don't really want to do that anymore. So I was talking to my friends and I think I'm ready for like to take a step back from beatboxing for like a few months and kind of see like where my passion lies, whether that's like creating content now or it very well may be like I do want to succeed more in battle, so I'm going to put more effort into like making battle routines. Or it might be like, hey man, I just want to like make routines, record them, and put them online. You know, like I don't know what it's going to be yet. And I just had like a bit of like a what now moment, you know, after doing well this weekend. I can tell you I want to do more tag team stuff. That was like really rewarding. We did really well this last weekend in tags, and I like loved it. It was a blast. It's like a very different experience being in a tag than solo.
I found that collaborative art is just, I don't know, it's more rewarding because you can do more inherently, right? Like there's more people, the different skill sets. Yeah.
Definitely. But I guess to answer your question, like I don't really know what my aspiration is now. Like I don't know what the next step is. I feel like this is a very weird like point in my beatboxing life where I've like 9 years of prep. I've like finally did the thing I wanted to do, and now it's like, now what? I don't know. We'll see.
And this is where, you know, and we touched on this, and I don't want to beat it over the head, but this is, you know, young, talented, dedicated artists are now becoming adults. And there's an anxiety about that.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I think that's why I want to start doing content with it too. Because I know that I don't have the time or energy anymore to like come home from my like 9 to 5 and like grind beatboxing. Like I'm just like not at that point in my life anymore. But I still love it. Like I love beatboxing. I love talking about beatboxing. I love beatboxing, you know? So it's like, how can I still like have this be a part of my life to where it doesn't feel like a chore? Like it felt like a chore for me to prepare for American Champs because I'm like coming home from work, like a new job, right? It's like a huge life change, move cities, everything. Like I don't know anyone here. Like, so in one regard, it felt like a chore to prepare, and another, it was like my thing I could go to, you know, because it was comfortable, you know. But again, I don't know how much of that like drive I have anymore to like grind for battles, you know. And that brings up a whole different conversation, you know, which is beatboxing just battle culture?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Wobbles had an entire video on that, which is there is, I think, a resentment to events and producers um the thing that really, that it was like, my teacher had said this in conservatory, and I was like, it was like an aha moment. She said that, you know, the conductors don't care about your voice. Like, they care about what they're doing. Like, there's no, you can't expect any consideration for you as an individual. And I think there's a desire for that, and it's fair to have some. And I think it's a good idea for beatboxers as individuals to set boundaries, right? Like, I'm not going to do this, right? I just had a sponsor contact me, and I'm like, if it's not up front, can't do it. Like,
yeah, it's very interesting. I think the whole like complaining about like event organization kind of bothers me, just because like I did like, all I can speak is my experience, right? For the longest time, I'm a kid in America with no competitions around me anywhere. I would have competed live earlier, you know what I mean? And that would have like boosted me tremendously. I only started competing live in 2018 was my first one. And like, that's like 6 years after I started beatboxing, because there's nothing around me. The only thing that was in America was like East and West Coast, you know? Like, I'm a kid in high school. I can't afford to go out there. So like, any person that's willing to like step up to the plate and fucking like organize an event, even if there's flaws, dude. I'm like, disregarding like obviously like sexual assault and like safety, like those need to, that's a standard that has to occur. But I get that like it's easy to complain and shit on an event organizer because like things that were done wrong. But man, like, I have the utmost respect for people that organize events, man. Like, otherwise you have no opportunity at all to do this shit. Like, you have nothing. So, yes, there are things that would have changed about every live event I've been to, but that doesn't mean that, like, we get to, like, shit on the organization, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if you think they're trying their best. Like, come on. Like, they're just humans at the end of the day.
Yeah. When I was doing my nonprofit in Philly, we did events, and oh boy, I think the assumption was that we had more money and more power, and we were gatekeepers, when the whole entire point of the nonprofit was actually to create opportunities by working with for-profit businesses and giving artists spaces. But if I didn't give the specific individual spaces, or I gave a person a space once, there was this kind of animosity, right? Like, what, like, someone actually, an artist actually reached out to me and was like, why didn't you hire me again? It's like, it's not my job to find you opportunities. I'm not going to hand you a consistent show.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, that kind of goes into the content conversation. You said you wanted to do content. Do you have anything to say on that one? I know it's loaded.
I mean, again, I've just been obsessed and addicted to YouTube. Like, I don't watch anything else. Like, all I do is, like, watch YouTube. You know, like, that's how I've always been my whole life. So I've always, like, dreamed of, like, making content, especially around beatboxing. Like, I'm just passionate about the community. Like, I've been here for so long. I love talking about beatboxing. So any form of content I could make, whether that's, I mean, reactions are hot and they get views. So, of course, I would do reactions. Like, I'd be stupid not to. But I don't know. I've always wanted to do a beatbox podcast. You know, I want to do, like, a show about beatboxing, like a recap of the week. And, you know, it's a combination of reacting and, like, showing new stuff I've been working on. And then, like, taking, like, questions from the community and just kind of, like, it's not just reactions. It's not just putting out your own routines. It's just like a show about beatboxing, you know, for people that love beatboxing. That's what I've always wanted to do. Who knows if I'll ever actually do it, but
I mean,
yeah.
Like, you know, Eclipse and I are trying to make it work. I think there's been a lot of talk in like YouTube guru channels that one of the reasons why Mr. Beast and a couple of other people are exploding is because they're genre bending.
Yeah.
And so in a way, like, the idea, and you don't have to do this, but the idea that we were thinking of was that you can do a react to either your own routine or someone like a Reaps 1 routine that really motivated you. Like, and then we have something with a little bit more substance.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah. I think that's like the goal future state of beatboxing content, right? Like if you just, I'm really into like music too, like the music scene, and I watch a lot of music YouTube, and I can't help but draw a lot of comparisons. There's just so much more depth in the content that you can make with the music industry compared to the beatboxing industry right now. I shouldn't say can, because I'm sure you can translate these things. They're just not being done right now. So I don't know. It's interesting. Beatboxing at the end of the day is still like very much in its infancy, I think. So who's to say like where content's gonna be in 3 years, 5 years, you know?
Yeah. It's
growing
tough
up
to
so fast.
yeah. As you know, one of the big deciding factors in whether or not this community kind of grows into something, I was going to say tangible, but profitable, which is not the same thing for sure. But if the demographic that is now consuming beatboxing doesn't age and keep beatboxing a part of their life, then the demographic is never going to be profitable enough. Like, I'm surprised. Like, I don't know what Boss gives Swiss Beatbox, so it's probably not a lot.
I would guess not a whole lot, but again, I have no idea. I think the whole like, where is like the future of the beatboxing like community, I think is such like a loaded and difficult question. I think there's not like one direction in which, or like one path that the beatbox community is going to take. And like the beatbox community now is all here instead of all back here in battle culture. Like there's always going to be this battle culture, and then there's always going to be people like Reaps that are pushing the boundaries of like human voice and doing other things with it. And then you'll see like, I want to say like the new like Malaysian videos, like Hartzell and Levy, like they started like kind of blending beatboxing and like produce music like Hiss does. Maybe that's the future, right? We like so many people, anytime like a new concept or like idea is brought to the beatbox community, people are like, oh, so this is going to be the future of beatboxing. This is going to be the thing that like bridges the gap. No, that's not true. They're all going to do that, you know? Like that's so like beatbox. I don't know. There's not like one home for the beatboxing community. There's just beatboxing with a million different applications, you know?
Yeah, it's not like anybody goes to like the round table of beatbox and like discusses things.
Right.
It's not linear. It's
yeah. It's interesting. So I guess what we're kind of moving towards in this conversation is, what is the future for the artist as an independent entity outside the community? And what does that I think is something you touched on. There's so many people doing so many different things. And so maybe the idea of a giant community and the community as like a monolith deteriorates a little bit so that it can grow.
Yeah, I think that's a really good visual. I like that. I think there are very few people in any community that are willing to take what is currently happening and ignore it and like take the thing that's at the center of that community, so beatboxing in our case, and like go do something else. Right? Like Hiss has done this, Reaps has done this. Like there are plenty of people that do it, but like the fact is 99% of the community is going to take what they see as successful, what inspired them, which for almost all of us are battle culture, right? And I'll speak just as a battler, right? And as someone that got into beatboxing that way, and most people I talk to in the beatboxing scene are the same way. We've seen what success looks like in the beatbox community, so we try and replicate that with our own styles, with our own kits, right? There's not a whole lot of people saying like, oh, Reaps is doing this, or like Hiss is doing this produced music. You know what, like, I'm not gonna do battle routines. I'm gonna put all of my grinding and effort into making produced music with beatboxing, right? How many people are doing that right now? Not a whole lot. And I think that's like commercially what makes more sense as like an artist, because of the way that our community is set up, right? Like the only people that can be like artists with just solo beatboxing are the people that have won giant battles, right? And that takes years and years and years of grinding. And like being lucky with like, you know what I mean, the right place, right time, and like all these things. So it's such a small fraction of a percent with the current like infrastructure of the beatboxing community of people that can be just successful solo beatboxing artists.
Yeah.
There's really not a lot of room for it. So we're either gonna like see that infrastructure change, so there's more room for solo beatboxers, or we're gonna see people say like, okay, fuck that, like I'm gonna learn how to produce music then and incorporate beatboxing into it instead of just putting all my effort into battling. You know, like we're gonna see people branch into other directions, or we're gonna see the infrastructure change, or both. Hopefully, you know, I think there's room for both. But
I wanted to give a shout out to Maddox, who, man, his stuff was so well produced.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like those videos are beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, I actually I almost feel like an anxiety kind of coming up, because this actually touches very similarly to opera. There are, oh my god, I think there are only about 2 or 3, really 3 opera houses that pay their artist a decent amount of money, because they're in big cities, and so what is decent in one area is, you know, the rent in Upper East Side. And it occurred to me, every person that I knew who did opera was trying so hard to get gigs. And the reality is that there's just not enough of them in the US. You can get some in Europe because it's a European art form, but there's just not a lot here. And so it was the same realization that you're having, right? Like, I can't just go win a bunch of battles. I can't go into a bunch of competitions. Actually, I'm too old now, but this decision happened before then. And so same, I watched a lot of YouTube, and I was like, well, this is what artists are doing to make shit work. Time to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, people are gonna follow the path that has been laid out and proven to be successful. You know, like that's just how it works. Like, more people are gonna do that than try and create a new lane. That's just a fact of the matter, and that's not a bad thing. But
no, it's not. Yeah, I mean, that's how we get like Jolix, right? He's taken the path. Yeah, no, the kid is insane. So that's like, that is a benefit of like a path that's already been taken, is you get like the people that get hired in opera at like the 3 big opera houses are so insane. Like they're monsters. Yeah. So, but there's this idea. Yeah.
The cool thing about that structure, although like shitty for most people participating, the people that do rise to the top are like mind-blowingly talented.
Yeah.
You know, to like really shine, you know, in a field of that many people that are grinding all the time, you have to be like special.
Yeah.
You know. And Jolix is crazy, man. We heard him live at American Champs last weekend. Whoo! Does not disappoint live, man. That kid is nuts.
I can't wait till Lesage gets to hear his Olim.
I haven't heard any ABC at all.
The energy in that room was incredible. It was really cool.
Sleep was trying to describe to me like what it felt to be part of a live performance, and how Sleep made one video, for, it was a wild card, right? The most recent wild card for ABC. And he's like, I have no interest in doing more. I really love the live aspect of it. And so I feel like I'm missing out a little bit.
Oh man, live is, I'll tell you, it is like game changing. Like, your whole perception of beatboxing will change when you go to live events. There's like, especially as someone that watches YouTube all the time and like is analyzing all the time, some questionable stuff you see on videos, you'll hear these people live and you're like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I understand. There are things that are just so impactful live that you wouldn't expect by just watching videos. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's cool, man. Live videos are awesome, or just like live comps in general are awesome. And people are nice, man. At least all I can speak to my experiences. There's definitely some oddballs, because it's an artistic field. There's always going to be some oddballs. And that's good, man. I fuck with that. But for the most part, like, everyone's so chill, man. Like, everyone's welcoming. So yeah, at least the American scene, the battles I've experienced, people have been super friendly. So
I won't oust this individual, but there is a great quote to kind of address the little bit of incel culture that happens online, not exclusive to beatboxing at all, but like it's online.
No, yeah.
And so this person, I love this quote. They've never touched grass or women.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's definitely, like, don't get me wrong, there's an air of like competition, like at these events. You know, everyone's kind of like eyeing each other, like before the battles happen. Like, hey, yeah, we're friendly, but like I got my eye on you. You know, I got to compete against you. There's very much that. Tough. But it doesn't feel like it does online, where it's like you're just trying to shit on people to make yourself feel better. It's more of just like, all right, like I gotta bring my A game because they're gonna be good, you know. So
that's a difficult balance because, like, again, I should be careful about how many parallels I make to the opera world, but man, do I see parallels here. In opera, when you're doing competition, you're trying to make a living out of this. You're trying to have a career, and it's so expensive to pursue. So when you have a situation where you're competing against one another and the stakes are very high, people become petty and ridiculous. But
oh man, yeah.
And I wanted to know if this is what you experienced. The people at the top are not.
Oh, no. It's always, there's like the upper echelon, because they have nothing to prove anymore, right? Yeah. There's the upper echelon, and they're always super humble, like for the most part, right? I can't say always, but
yeah.
And then there's that level, there's the low level, right? Like the entry level, and those people are like the nicest out of the entire community, like 99% of the time. They're just excited to be there, they just love beatboxing. And then there's the middle section, which are all the people that have like the chance to do well and have that be their breakout tournament. And man, most of those people, not super fun to be around, like, at least during the competition, right? Because you're right, like when competitions are this few and far between and they're this expensive to go to, like this is like people are giving their all, man. Like they have to put their all out there to try and win this because you're sacrificing a lot to be at these events, and they don't happen very often. I think if the infrastructure changes in the beatbox community and there's not a plethora of events, but it's not like the one event a year. Like you spent 12 months grinding for that point. If you fuck up once or you lose that battle, like that's crushing, man. Like that sucks. But if you have battles all the time, you know, I think that like that culture of like, this is my only chance. I have to do everything I can to like put this person down so I can win. I think that'll kind of fizzle a little bit. That's my hope, at least. You know?
Yeah, I hope so, because it didn't fizzle with opera, and it's like hundreds of years old.
Yeah, that's fair.
God, it sucks because yes, you're right, and to do it live is incredibly cumbersome. And like the ABC was happening, and I kept expecting to hear other things, like not different artists, but like, oh, what other tournaments are going on? And none. The answer to that is zero.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was really interesting about the BBU. And that I don't like, that's a part of the solution, right? It's not the core of the solution. And that's where it goes back to individual artists, right? Like Maddox, that man can make a video.
Oh man,
his video production is insane.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think part of that comes with like, interestingly, like the size of the community. At least, like, think about like America. Like, it's a huge country geographically, right? There's a ton of beatboxers, but there's maybe, I don't know, say 3 events a year, right? Scattered in different parts of America. If the beatbox community continues to grow to a point where like you can hold a regional battle and field enough talent from that region to like make it a pretty sizable battle, it's easier to justify having more of them, you know, and like a country like America is huge, man. Like it's hard to, if you're from the West Coast, go all the way to New York for the tournament, and that's the only tournament a year is American.
It takes a week of driving.
Yeah,
I think people in Europe don't appreciate how big that distance is. They're like, oh, it's big, but it's like to get from point A to point B, like to get from Northern California to SoCal was a 12-hour drive.
Yeah, it's super long.
Yeah,
super long.
It's one state.
And it's not like there's trains. Like you're driving or you're flying.
Yeah.
I feel like Europe has great infrastructure. Like if I lived in France, dude, I go to every battle in France. You know, almost everyone in France can probably make it to those battles because it's like living in a state. You know. Like,
yeah. Exactly. That's a great comparison. What Europeans think of as countries is way different than Americans. And then, you know, that idea of it's a state, that's a hard concept, I think, to translate, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not quite the same as like the EU, right?
Yeah. It's just like accessibility wise, like the French beatboxers, for example, have to go to Poland for GBB. That'd be like me going to like Indiana from Minneapolis, like, or what, you know, whatever the equivalent is. Like that's a hell of a lot easier. And those are for international battles. Just to go to our country's championship, people have to travel 2,000 miles to get there.
Yeah.
So I think when like beatboxing, we're in this weird middle ground in terms of like amount, like density of beatboxers. You know, like when we get to a point where like you can just hold a regional battle and there's enough beatboxers within like that radius that can just show up and you can financially have a successful battle, people are going to start doing it more, you know?
Yeah.
Right now is a risk, man. Like Lou, who runs Midwest, like every time he puts it on, or Asher that runs Crossroads, like that's like a financial like risk and burden that they have to put on and just hope that beatboxers from around the country will make the trip out. And, you know, like, that's tough. That's really hard. That's hard as an organizer to do.
Interestingly enough, I think the beatbox community and producers would benefit a lot from looking at the fighting game community.
Because I play Smash game.
Yeah. So you get it. Like, there's all these local tournaments and regionals. And, you know, and you could say, like, the cost isn't as high. Finding an old CRT TV, that's tough. That's rough with Melee. I really hoped Ultimate or whatever is the newest one. I really hoped it would take off because there are only so many of those things.
It definitely has. I mean, Ultimate's bigger than Melee for sure.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like ground floor, like it's easier. You don't have to go buy a box TV. Yeah.
Fun.
I was in like the Melee club in college, and like literally they just had a big ass like cart with like CRTs like Tetris like built on this cart, and they were and if it rained, we just couldn't have the club because you have to wheel the TVs outside to like whatever building we're going to. So like the barrier to entry it's a huge thing.
Tarp over it.
Yeah.
But you can't risk it even with the tarp. Like I remember we used to like growing up. Like I grew up with CRTs. Everybody, I'm old.
Yeah,
you know, I'd go to like a bougie friend of mine, and they'd have this massive CRT TV, and I'm like, "What forklift did you use to get it inside there?
How did you get that in? Yeah,
it's amazing. It's magic."
Yeah, but yeah, I never even thought about that. For as like involved I am in like, I don't really play as much like Melee anymore, but I watch like every tournament. Like, yeah, there's every state, every like region has like local tournaments that feed into like larger region tournaments that feed into like majors, that feed into super majors. Like if you had some sort of stuff like that for beatboxing,
organizing a league is a different, like producing is hard. Building a league is, oh my God. Like if we look at Riot, so this is actually, my brother works for Riot on the fighting game, and I didn't know this. League of Legends as an esport is not profitable at all.
Really?
Yeah. They justify it as an advertising expense. It is not profitable, which is insane because it packs Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and it's not profitable.
Yeah.
So I don't think
I
people...
mean,
like,
they throw a shit ton of money at it, you know. I guess it makes sense, but that's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it justifies it as a marketing expense. And you see the same thing with Valorant. Like, when you have digital assets that people will pay money for, you have no overhead. It's like, here's a skin. Paid an artist, you know, $100 in a day to make it. And obviously there's more involved in that, but like,
yeah.
It's very lucrative.
Yeah. Honestly, I will say I have been seeing more like beatbox, like Minnesota beatbox or Colorado beatbox community. Like people are really like spearheading these movements of creating like a local scene, which is like to me like the first building block of like setting the infrastructure up. At least all I can speak to is like American beatboxing. You know, I don't know how it is in other countries, but like if you draw a parallel to like Smash, right? Like every college basically has a Smash club that has free Smash Fest. They're not tournaments. You just show up. Everyone, it's like the equivalent of like having jams with like whoever's nearby as a beatboxer. And again, there are less beatboxers, so it's harder to do that. But the more that like people start to set those up in different regions, like beatboxers aren't just gonna like, they don't have to like learn how to beatbox in their room by themselves and then show up as like a random guy that's really good at tournaments. You like, the future to me is like finding people that don't beatbox, having an environment that's really fun to show up to and jam at, and then building all these people up, you know, and all these separate mini communities building up their people, and then you have a big event where everyone gets to show off. You know, that's kind of how like Smash is, and I feel like that works. So
I do feel like with how fast beatbox is growing, that beatbox clubs are in the near future.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one in school. Like, I created one with like a bunch of beatboxers in Madison. We had like a group chat, and then even just like within my acapella group, I got like several. Like my tag team partner started beatboxing because he heard me beatboxing, and then I lived with him, and like you know, like you were just jamming all the time. And then like our other friend, we do a trio stuff, you know, like. He had some beatboxing experience and then comes into the group, and like we're all just feeding off each other. And if you have a community that's just like learning at a local level, you kind of avoid that whole like competition aspect, and it's more just like let me build my boys and girls up around me, you know what I mean? And then
absolutely.
Let's all go to this event together, and like let's all just show like what our local communities have to offer. And it's so much less toxic in my opinion.
Well, you have the majority of your social interaction is not in competition form, which is where, well, right. Yeah. I mean, like the basis of a healthy relationship, it's not like Saturday night, I'm going out with my wife, to, I don't know, like rock'em sock'em robots or whatever, like competition, physical sport that I'd have to learn to do. It'd be disastrous.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like competition should be like a check-in for people, you know, it should be like, that shouldn't be like your only source of like live beatboxing interaction. It should not be in competitions, you know, to me like that's why our scene is so like battle oriented, you know. One thing you said kind of makes me a little misty, which is you brought someone into beatboxing who would not have otherwise been there. And you did it, I imagine, with incredible enthusiasm, knowing that that person might have called you crazy and would have walked away. Yeah, I mean, that's how I always am. Like, I'm always championing beatboxing, you know, like putting it up on this pedestal, like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, all you have to do is learn, you know, like, anyone can do it, you know. It only takes a decade. I promise it's worth. Yeah. No, that happened with,
well, I mean,
not anymore.
Kids are crazy. There are kids like Trollocs who's like, oh, I am beatboxing for a year. Check me out. He was made in a lab. Yeah. He's not a real person. I'll put respect on my tag team partner's name, dude. He's been beatboxing for now a year and a half, and we went and got third at American Champs. And like, it's not like I was carrying him. You know what I mean? Like we were like equal parts of this tag team. Like can keep up very, very much so. Keep up with everyone else. And like, I like the word carrying. Video game reference, but it also has some sort of poetic application here.
Yeah.
I mean, with tag teams, it's good to have like good designated roles for like mainly percussion and then the special sounds and singing over top of it. So I mean, a lot of people look at the people that are doing the more percussion as like, oh, they're just doing the simple stuff, and then these people are doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still important, you know.
Yeah, no, I think tag team has like so much untapped potential.
Yeah.
And you could see that with like the top
Wave.
of the game, like Rogue Wave, Middle School, Uniteam, like all these guys are like truly like next level, and that's the top. I still think there's like so much unexplored tag team. Just like the culture of tag teams really hasn't been defined yet on like the mid level, like regional battles, like. Everyone that shows up has a completely different style, which is so cool because you don't really see that in solos as much. Solos, there's more of like a carved path that people follow, and they obviously everyone sounds different. Like that's the cool thing about beatboxing, but like you can see how inspired everyone is by everyone else in solos. Tags, there's a little more room right now, especially like crews and stuff.
The crew stuff is, to me,
crew stuff is completely
that's exciting. My wife knew about Berry Wham before I did. Because she watched
they're huge.
AGT.
She watched AGT, and like there's this beatboxing group, and I was such a dick about it. I was like, well,
sure,
let me tell you about beatboxing. And then then I get showed Berry Wham, and I have to be like, so, wife,
you're right.
I was a dick.
yeah. I feel like there have been few beatboxers that are like like the top of the community and really well respected in the community, and then like leaped over to mainstream and also had success there. Like a lot of the people that you see like huge in the mainstream are not people that are super well respected in the beatbox community. So Berry Wham,
which is a shame.
Like Karina Effects did it a little bit back in the day, but Berry Wham is like, and Hiss maybe are like really the first ones to be like top of community and like really well representing the beatbox community in mainstream media, which is really cool. Like, it's so cool to see like what beatboxers think is awesome, also everyone else think is awesome. Because sometimes there's a disconnect between that, you know, more often than we like to admit. You know, things that beatboxers are like, oh, that's really sick. It gets a little too niche. It gets a little too weird for some people, you know.
It's funny. I in my mind instantly I was drawing a comparison to Ninja's career. But that's not an apt comparison because Twitch is full of hate. And, you know, Ninja was catering to a very young demographic that had just got into the gaming community. So there wasn't this respect. So that is what's nice about having like more of a homogeny of a community. There's parts of that where it's kind of beautiful.
It's definitely cool. Like, it's super cool to see like D-Lo like blow up on TikTok or something. Like the people that like even in the beatbox community.
Mr. Beast reacting. Yeah.
Wait, he reacted to D-Lo?
He reacted to D-Lo.
I didn't see that.
And he so it was like, the reaction video was like, what's the coolest thing? And they would give like scores depending on what they had just watched. And they had a hard time choosing between D-Lo and whatever the hell else, you know, was in that running. So, yeah, Mr. Beast gave D-Lo a massive shout out. That's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, Mr. Beast, it's like just a really short segment, you know.
Yeah, but like the amount, like the audience he has, that video in itself is gonna inspire like thousands of beatboxers. In like 3 years, we're gonna see people like that are like, yeah, I started because I watched Mr. Beast react to D-Lo, which is crazy. Like that's so cool. Funny enough, like you were talking about Ninja and Melee, like Ninja brought a ton of new eyes to the Smash community. Because like I can't even remember what it was, but Ninja's always been a Smash fan, and like when he was at his peak popularity, he like basically was like sending out tweets like saying like, hey, watch his tournament this weekend, and it like boosted numbers so much for Melee. So man, just having like one big name react to your community can change the entire thing.
I want to go into so we're talking about like a lot of big stuff.
Yeah.
I want to dig into the personal, because we talk about Mr. Beast, the challenges of being an artist, making content, and maintaining enthusiasm. You need all three if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that latter is hard. How do you, how do you keep beatboxing positive and meaningful for you? It's a loaded question, I know.
Yeah, that's hard. I think it was easier in college to do it because I was forced, willingly, but I was forced to 3 times a week for 2 to 3 hours to go to rehearsal for acapella and like push myself beatboxing. Like I basically had designated times where I'm going to be beatboxing for 2 hours, so that for one was really helpful because it was different than beatboxing too. It's different than solo beatboxing, but I'm still improving. So I had this like free outlet of like, I'm always improving even when I don't have to like push myself to practice beatboxing, I always have a way that I'm still practicing. So that was great. It always kept me beatboxing. It kept me inspired, because I'd come out of rehearsal with like a fucking vocal technique that I was working on, like while everyone else is singing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go practice this tomorrow, So it was like this really nice cadence. I think it's gonna be tough for me now to stay motivated with it, and this is kind of like touches back. Yeah, like I need to define for myself what beatboxing is for me, right? Is it a hobby that I do just to bring myself fulfillment? Like, is it something I'm gonna come home and just do when I feel like doing, and that's it? And maybe that's that's all it is, Is it something for me that like I want to prove myself, Because that changes drastically.
That changes the dynamic.
Yeah, the dynamic I have with beatboxing. Is it pure fun? Do I have ego? Do I have like happiness placed on performing well with beatboxing? Because that's completely different. Or is it just content? Because then I've never made content, right? But I can imagine like as views start rolling in, like your mind state on like how you react to things, what you choose to react to, like what you choose to produce content wise, I'm sure changes a lot based on the reception you're getting. And at that point, is it like, am I making content because I love it, or am I making content to be successful in making content? I'm sure it gets really convoluted.
Yeah, there's a bridge you have to build. Like, I didn't know, like, my head was in the sand, man. I was opera for like 12, 13 years, maybe longer, maybe like 15. And I started doing a React. I was trying to make a business. So I was trying to keep singing in my life at all costs. I worked the midnight shift at Trader Joe's. I'd come in at home, and 3 days out of the week, I would make videos. And then once or twice a week, I would work on Python so that I can, my camera froze a little bit. But I work on Python because I thought that the only way to compete with people who are doing it full time is to leverage automation as much as possible. And I'm so lucky that I had help. My brother is an insane software engineer. He started he's older than me, and he started when he was 9, which was unheard of at the time. He bought a QBasic book and a C++ book, and he taught himself. He couldn't look up shit. You couldn't look at Stack Overflow, right?
Yeah,
there's no website for this. So he did it all. And so I had resources, and I have a friend who just loves to code shit. He just loves projects. So I was really lucky, and it was serendipitous, and I was trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And I still haven't made it work.
It's the journey though, man. It's the beauty in the journey. I don't know, man. I'm excited to just dip my toes in and see if I really like it. Because at the end of the day, this might not even be something I enjoy doing. It might just I enjoy consuming content. That doesn't necessarily mean that I like creating it, so we'll see.
There are so many there's so many different ways to make content. And I think that one of the things that I see as a barrier to a lot of people, like just the emotional health goes out the window when you don't recognize that this isn't a TV show.
Yeah.
You're documenting, not creating. Sometimes you create, right? You should.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
But when that anxiety comes in to be like, oh my God, I have to make my video pristine. Like, it's like, will my mother love me if my audio is bad? You know?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure like not being a perfectionist is like a big one, you know?
The biggest thing for me was output, because it emotionally protects me.
Like, no, I feel that. Yeah.
It's like that. 60 videos a month. Go. Like,
yeah. Because if 5 do bad, it doesn't matter, you know?
Exactly.
But if you put 2 weeks of effort into a video and it does bad, you're probably like, oh.
Yeah.
You probably don't feel super good about that. So
I've recently actually changed my tune on that, because I'm starting to realize that you can't measure the emotional impact of a video.
Oh, definitely not.
And so that's like, I don't know. It occurred like Gary Vaynerchuk, whether or not you think he's a grifter, like that was his thing, is like make many videos for very specific people. And I recognized that as a strategy, but I didn't recognize that as a creator and what that means to people.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I watch the shit out of YouTube. I think I watch the most I had been on Netflix recently was I watched like 4 episodes of Into the Badlands, because it's like a Quentin Tarantino film, but in a miniseries. And that was over the course of 2 weeks. Everything else is YouTube.
It's hard for me to watch stuff that isn't YouTube. I don't know why. Like, I just don't have the attention span for it, I guess. But
yeah, that's you're just describing the death of like Netflix and all these other long form TV shows and stuff.
I think there are shows that I can do. Like, I can watch a show or two and watch an episode a week, but I can't like, my main source of entertainment can't just be like binging The Office every day. Like, it can't. Like, I can watch like an artistic piece, you know, and be very happy and content. I can watch a good movie, you know, or watch Game of Thrones every week, whatever it is. But yeah, like my day-to-day content consumption, it has to be YouTube. Like, nothing else keeps my attention long enough.
It's funny, like, as someone who's been watching Philip DeFranco for news consumption for like 4 or 5 years, because he was like, in 2005, when I first started watching YouTube, the people that stuck around and were relevant, I actually don't see them anywhere, unless it's Philip DeFranco. I'm sure there's another, but one of my favorite creators, Songe Le Revier, he would do video game metal covers, which of course are massive now, but this was in like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
And he stopped uploading because YouTube didn't pay, right? He couldn't get sponsors or signed because he was doing covers. So the only profitable thing you can do in that situation is make your own music, but he didn't do that. I don't think he wanted to do that. And then recently, another artist of mine, or favorite artist of mine, God, I forget his name. I love him so much, and I forget his name. God, this is gonna bother me. It's gonna bother the crap out of me. He deleted all of his videos. He deleted his channel, which was just crushing to me. God, Sukaji.
It is interesting when you like think about creators just as like people, man. Like, you take like all these videos for granted, like they're like an organization like pumping out videos. But like at the end of the day, this is like somebody making the conscious decision every day to pump out these videos. And that's tough. Like, it's something I didn't realize until I got a little older and like
started thinking about doing content, it's like, holy shit, man. Like, when someone didn't upload for 2 weeks, like, maybe they just didn't fucking want to. Like,
yeah, or like, life. Like, I'm glad I have multiple demographics, and the R&B and gospel community are of the oldest of the demographics that I serve. And I was so upset when, like, I have to look for a job. There's this IT job that I really want, which is work at home. There's space in between, and it's really flexible. It's a contract gig. I really want to do that, but they're not, like, it's been a long onboarding process to the part where, like, now I need to get a job while I wait for the IT job, while I wait for full-time content again. And it's like, it's brutal. And yeah, the amount of effort, like, I don't want to get too personal here, but, like, there's a cost emotionally to putting that much into it while life is happening. I think the moment that I sobered up to that reality is I have a lot of, older friends who spent just so many years and so much money on being amazing. And oh my God, they're amazing. Probably because I didn't make those sacrifices, I will never be anywhere near as good.
You mean like in terms of opera?
Yeah, or acting as well, but opera specifically. And this person had dedicated their life to opera and was, like, entering 40s and didn't have health insurance. And I remember we were cooking one day, just hanging out, and the knife slipped on her finger, and she's like, oh my God, I don't have health insurance. So I ran to the pharmacy, got steroid strips, looked online about how to stop the bleeding, and we made it work. But that was my moment of, like, I can't do this. Like,
yeah, man, it's tough.
It's weird because, in a way, trying to keep it into your life, at dramatic cost, takes it out of your life.
Definitely. I feel like, man, not to get too deep on it, but I've talked to, like, a lot of people online in the beatbox community. There's a whole lot of people that are, not doing the things they want to do in life and just, like, putting a lot of time into beatboxing, or, like, that's what they do to, like, I don't know, lighten their day after not enjoying their job, or, like, I feel like there's not a whole lot of people I've talked to in the community that just, like, went to 4-year universities, got a degree, working, like, a 9 to 5, and also trying to do beatboxing. I feel like it's just really not as common in the community, so
it's difficult.
Definitely weird to navigate this now. Like, I mean, I just graduated with an industrial engineering degree, so I'm doing, like, pretty technical, like, corporate job stuff, and then coming home and trying to, like, grind beatboxing, and then talking to kids that, like, didn't work and just, like, have just been online all day, and it's, like, kind of demoralizing,
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's sad, but
and then there's that stigma that about age in the arts that, like, I was like, whatever, I'll do this, I'll keep trying to do this until I'm 40, and then I admitted to myself, fuck it, I'll do it until I die. I'll keep going with it. But there is something too, if you're not really good when you're young, it's going to be much harder.
Yeah, it's tough. If you want to make it, like, your main thing, it's really tough. You gotta start young, you gotta have the talent for it, you have to have the resources for it, like, timings have to line up. You
gotta develop some business chops too.
Yeah,
going back to when I was doing my nonprofit and people, coming up to me and was like, why didn't you hire me again? And I'm like, I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking about getting the next grant. Like, I work with dozens of artists. Like, why do you think I spend mental energy on you? It's not that I hate you. It's not that I think you're untalented. It's that I've got shit to do.
You have to do what's best for your business,
Yeah. At that point, the nonprofit, but I'm glad it's no longer. Someone says, I'm Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not as cool as Napoleon Dynamite. I can't dance. I also don't call my alpacas fat tubs lord.
Are there any questions in the chat? Anything interesting?
Let's take a look. A couple were paralleling what we were going over. Teaching enthusiasm. That's an interesting one we didn't talk about. There's a lot of people who find the diction and answers to properly teach and relay the message. That's an interesting one. That
teaching is interesting. Yeah.
That teaching is an important part of growing and maintaining the community.
Yeah,
and just someone's life.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what you're talking about with teaching, right? Like, there is, like, the very, like, I guess, like, my first thought would go to, like, lessons, right? But, like, teaching goes so much further beyond than just, like, charging $30 an hour for a lesson, you know? And, like, hoping that people do it, and you help them make some routines, and you teach them some sounds, you know? Like, teaching in the beatbox community is so much more than that. And I think the best teacher in the whole community is fucking YouTube. Like, YouTube is the teacher for the community. You just got to be willing to dig into the rabbit hole deep enough and critically analyze everything that you're inputting, you know? And that to me, there's no better teacher than just looking at the history of beatboxing via YouTube, you know?
It's interesting because we touched on this in the interview with Vocoda. But I wish he teaches often, and I could very clearly tell when he was breaking down his own performances, the thoughtfulness he put into the explanation. You could just tell. And I wish I had talked to him about this, but again, to parallel it with my own experience, because I'm selfish, the teacher that transformed everything, it took me 10, 11 years to find. Probably more close to 11.
Yeah.
I had just graduated from conservatory. I was told to quit by my teacher for 5 years. And I was like, if I do that, I hit the same wall in whatever I do next 10 years later. I'm not going to do that. But I didn't know, like, I didn't have what I usually have. Like, when I was competitive in Warcraft 3, there was a mental framework. It was objective, like, odds and ends. And it wasn't until I met an Alexander teacher who also had a master's degree in voice and speech pathology, who also was actively trying to get certified in Estel, just went all in on being a teacher, changed everything. Everything. I can sing now in ways I thought I should give up on. It's insane.
That's sick. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just because she translated it.
Yeah. At American Champs, I know, like, I don't know how familiar you are with, like, Beatbox education program. I think it's like Alisi, Vino, Villain, maybe one other person. Sorry if I'm forgetting anyone. Basically, they've developed, like, the first, like, robust teaching structure, where they have, like, you can opt into a program. It's like taking a class on beatboxing, and those are your professors. You have weekly jams, and they were talking about it at the event, and it's just, like, really cool to see beatboxing evolve in that side of things. You know, teaching is, I mean, as important as any other infrastructure in a community. You know, if you don't have teachers, who are you learning from? You know? Right,
exactly. I'm gonna I have my wife is calling. Eclipse, if you want to take over, or if you want to do a jam with terrible latency. Give me 1 second.
But any other questions in the chat or anything? I can't see it, so.
I'd have to go to his stream. Need to mute the stream.
It's fun. I lost track of time. Where Panda Express now has Impossible Nuggets or whatever, or like chicken, and she brought it up because she's super vegan, and Chinese food. You know, she's Jewish, so every Christmas she'd get Chinese food. So it's a big part of what she loves, and she couldn't have it a lot of times. And so now, like Panda Express, which is your quintessential trashy Chinese food. They're, you know,
I like Panda Express, man.
I love it.
Panda Express is fire.
I love it, but we gotta be honest with what it is.
No,
it's
you're
hot
right,
garbage.
Right. But it is fucking good.
Yeah, it's fucking great. I don't even care if there's enough MSG to like match my body weight. Like, I gotta have Panda Express.
Is good, man. I love it.
It's super tasty. So many people have done like fast food tier lists. And
oh, dude, I have a fried chicken fast food tier list. I'm very passionate about it.
That's content.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, for real. I want to get to some of the chat before we go.
Yeah.
Taking a break. All amongst yourselves. Jolix is in the chat if you have any.
Let's go.
Joshua too.
Shout out to Joshua, dude. He was so good. He killed it at Champs.
Yo, don't hate on that orange and teriyaki. I can't sit there looking at deep fried sugar coated sauce, salt, and say that it's like fine dining.
Dude, it's good though.
I'll eat the shit out of it.
It's so good.
I'll eat the shit out of it. I'll like wake up the next morning, like all puffy, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of sodium. Time to get it again. Like,
yeah.
So I'm excited to do that with my wife.
My wife.
I'm excited for more interviews. Just to say it, Jolix, I'm sorry I'm dropping the ball so heavy. The reason why this was put together was Eclipse put up the initiative. So thank you for that. And thank you, ZVD. These are things I didn't think about that I have experience with and are translating into a different context.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, I'm just like the biggest beatboxing nerd, and I love talking about it. So anytime someone gives me the chance to talk about it, I'll do it.
Do you have any like short routines that you've been working on that you would like to share? No is a fine answer.
I mean, I did a lot of my new stuff at Champs, so I guess just like watch those when they come out. My voice is still messed up from Champs. I can't even do like poly right now.
Totally fair.
I'm squeaking it out, and my double voice is kind of shaky right now.
Well, rest assured, we will watch those videos and we will enjoy them thoroughly.
Yeah. I will say, note on American Champs, I'm not like super happy with, like, I'm happy with how I did performance wise, but like execution wise, it's not the best. So I think
you're always gonna be that way. Like the second I record something that I'm singing opera, I'm gonna be like,
yeah. I'm very critical of my own stuff, and I had some really cool moments, and I had some moments where I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to watch that back. It hurts to listen to.
No, I relate.
But
100%.
I'm gonna try really hard so I like want a mic, like a pretty nice like Sennheiser. So as soon as I get that mic in, I'm gonna try and record in all the routines I had prepped for American Champs and post them. So
love Sennheisers.
Yeah, I just have like a D5 right now, which is fine. But
yeah, this is the 835 eBay. I got a great piece of advice from an audio engineer. He's like, mics haven't changed in like 50 years. Go get a used one. Yeah. They're durable as shit. I got a used, this is an AKG C414. New, it's $1,500 to $1,700. Used, I did have to save up for a bit. It was about $400, $500. So like a 66% discount. I never turn this thing off, ever. I've had it for 5 years. It's constantly plugged into my Scarlett 6i6. I just never fucking turn it off. Yeah. It's on, not on a boom stand. I'm going to move my chair forward and it gets hit. And one of these days, I will pay for that.
Yeah.
But it's been years. So anyway.
music equipment is built to last for the most part.
Very much so.
It's some good shit. Yeah.
I like the RC505 for that reason.
Oh, dude, I love my 505. Yeah, it's so nice.
It does so much, just on production as well. Not just like loop competition shit, but like making music. It's super sick.
I just use it as a soundboard most of the time.
Yeah,
like EQ for EQ, for an audio interface. Yeah,
I do it. I use it for music videos. Listen, man, we got to end, but I really want to sit down and talk about content with you and see if I can help you at all. Man. Because, I made all of these scripts. I made like 30 something Python scripts. I used 2 of them, but like, I've invested a lot of thought and time into this, and I'm not anywhere near like Shazam and Sin, but you're an amazing beatboxer. You're very thoughtful. Thank you, and I think it'd be tragic for you not to have a platform.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Cool. Check me out on Instagram, ZVD Beatbox. check the YouTube.
Down in the comment below, we're gonna have something pinned where you can check out this man's socials. ZVD. Thank you.
Yeah, I loved your reaction to my wildcard, by the way. I think you were like the first one too.
I think you were the first or second one. Selection.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, yo,
dude.
I think it was my first reaction ever, so it was cool.
I love beatboxing.
I think shout out Ryan Smallwood in the chat for suggesting ZVD and JLEP on our first ABC wildcards, because I didn't pull yours up at first, and he's like, dude, ZVD is sick. And I'm like, I don't know that dude, but I'll put him in, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I love this shit. I get asked a lot, like, are you going to learn beatboxing? Probably not, because I've sunken cost fallacy on opera.
I feel that. I think, honestly, like, it'd be interesting to see what you did. Like, you don't have to learn beatboxing with the intention of, like, battling. Just, like,
do what makes you happy, have fun with sounds that rely heavily on this is totally not the right words for it, but oral resonance and resonance in general.
Yeah.
So I love this shit out of throat bass.
Yeah, I do a lot of vocal technique stuff.
Yeah, but it's there's also nothing wrong with being a total fan.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I run into Reaps one, and I'm like, "Can you do Move?" I can't ask him to do that.
Not everyone that listens to music makes music. It's not like a requirement that you have to be an artist to enjoy art.
Yeah, for sure. It's a brave new world for me, because when it comes to opera, there are only so many ways you can project over an orchestra.
Sure.
It's very limiting in terms of the variance. I think it's worth the cost. I think that level of investment is amazing and beautiful. But there's something magical about a bunch of really young artists who for the most part are young enough where they don't really give a fuck, making weird ass noises, walking around their house, that if I did it, I would piss off my wife. Like, she'd be like, shut up. I pissed off my brother.
Trust me, that happens a lot.
Yeah. I was working on throat bass at a kind of a LAN party with my brother. Acid reflux and talking, the folds won't close.
No, man, learning noises is the worst for everyone around me. Like, sitting through a beatbox, you're trying to learn a noise is the worst thing ever. It's so annoying. And I never experienced it until my roommate and tag team partner, or my old roommate, because they just had to deal with me doing it all the time. And when he started beatboxing, I was like, I get it now. I'm sure that's pretty annoying. Just hearing all day, just like from different parts of the house, just all you're hearing is that.
My secret, and this is a great hot tip for singing as well. If you go to the bathroom, most of the sounds that you're trying to make are contextually appropriate.
Oh, dude, the bathroom is like...
You farting in there? Yeah, just give me a minute. Like,
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I just do not care anymore. I just beatbox in public as I walk past people.
I'll be walking past someone going like, just like crazy fucking shit. They'll just look at me and I'm just like, they'll get it. Like they'll understand one day.
I used to practice my vowels in grocery stores when I would go shopping. Yeah, and my brother would
I do like doing weird shit in public.
Yeah, the fucking the worst, like the classic for me is I'll be like all alone on like an elevator or like waiting for an elevator and just like going in because there's no one around, and then the door opens up and I just have to stop and I have to either choose to just keep going or be like,
yeah. And then it turns that silence into the elevator into a whole another level of awkward.
Yeah,
that totally happened to me when I was doing opera, 100%.
Yeah, or I'll just start like coughing.
Yeah,
yeah. I was just I was doing
like
yeah. Because like imagine if you had no idea what like modern beatboxing was and all your idea of beatboxing was just like, and then you heard someone going like. Yeah, I'd be like, "What is happening? Like, who are you? Like, what's going on?"
That's my favorite thing about, because I had watched in 2016 and 17. Like, I was watching when like LM1 and Korean Effects was kind of like going a little bit mainstream, and I started working a very physical job, and then I started trying to make content. So by the time I get back, I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah,
it's
there was
insane.
A crazy level up in like the last 4 years.
It's bazonkers.
Yeah, it's
all right.
Absurd. I always think about if like any like average beatboxer nowadays went back to like 2009, they would just like destroy everyone. No, everyone would be like, what?
Jolix would destroy.
Yeah, imagine Jolix going back to the 2009 world champs. Everyone would be like you're an alien. Like, how is that even possible? Liberals didn't even exist back then, dude. Like, and now we have kids doing like crazy like poly chest bass. Like, it's nuts.
Now Napalm can't say you can't roll like this.
Most people can do it now.
Yeah,
not to his level, but yeah,
of course,
it's crazy.
Wally can roll like that.
Yeah, Wally can roll like that.
All right.
It's been a pleasure, man.
And Express. I'll be thinking about beatboxing, probably making noises as I eat shitty, delicious Chinese food. We'll be in touch. I'll send you a DM, and we'll start talking about some content, ways to start where it's not so difficult or demanding, and you'll probably see some success. So,
yeah.
Peace.